The pregnancy test slipped from Beverly's fingers, clattering against the bathroom sink. 2 pink lines. But that was impossible. She was a virgin. 23 years old, focused on graduating college, and had never been intimate with anyone. So how? Then the memory crashed through her mind like a freight train. 3 weeks ago. The routine procedure her stepmother had insisted she needed. The fertility clinic her stepbrother had driven her to. The sedation she hadn't questioned because she trusted them. Her phone buzzed. A text from her stepmother. The client wants to meet the surrogate tomorrow. Don't embarrass us. Surrogate? Beverly's hands trembled as she scrolled through her stepmother's emails, the ones she'd secretly gained access to last week after noticing strange bank deposits. Her blood ran cold. She'd been implanted with someone's embryo without her consent. Sold like livestock to clear her stepmother's gambling debts. But the next email made her grip the sink for support. It was from the fertility clinic's legal department, marked urgent and confidential. We regret to inform you of a critical laboratory error. The specimen used for patient Beverly Smith was incorrectly labeled. The biological material belonged to client 7892, not client 7891 as intended. Client 7892 has been notified and is Mr. Benson Lee of Lee Global Industries. Beverly Googled the name with shaking fingers. The search results nearly made her pass out. Benson Lee. Net worth, $47 billion. CEO of the largest shipping conglomerate in Asia. Known as the Ice Emperor of Korean business. She was carrying the babies of a man she'd never met. A billionaire who had no idea she existed. And somewhere out there, her stepmother was about to find out that she'd accidentally stumbled into a situation worth far more than the measly $50,000 she'd been promised. Beverly looked at her reflection in the mirror, her long dark hair falling past her shoulders, her brown eyes wide with shock, her full lips pressed into a thin line. Then, slowly, something shifted in her expression. She'd spent 4 years letting her stepmother control her life after her father's death. For years of being the obedient stepdaughter, keeping the peace, just trying to graduate and escape. But this was the line. She placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. All right, little ones, she whispered. Looks like your mama's about to raise some hell. Welcome back to our channel, beautiful people. If you're new here, you've just stepped into the most dramatic corner of YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Now, grab your favorite snack, get comfortable, and let's dive into this journey together. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this one unfolds. The Miami Sun was doing absolutely nothing for Beverly's mood. She sat in the waiting room of Chloe and Associates Family Law, a recommendation from her academic advisor who'd noticed something was wrong and tried not to think about how her entire life had derailed in the span of 72 hours. Miss Smith. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and impressive acrylic nails, gestured toward the office door. Attorney Williams will see you now. Beverly stood, smoothing down her yellow sundress, one of the few nice things she owned that her stepmother hadn't tried to borrow and never return, and walked into the office with her shoulders back. If she was going to fight, she was going to fight with her spine straight. Attorney Patricia Williams was a black woman in her 60s with silver locks and a no-nonsense expression that immediately made Beverly feel safer. The kind of woman who had seen everything and was surprised by nothing. Sit down, honey. Patricia gestured to the chair across from her desk. I read through what you emailed me. I'm going to be honest with you, in 30 years of family law, I have never seen anything quite like this. That makes 2 of us, Beverly said dryly. Patricia's lips twitched. I like you already. Now, let's establish the facts. You were taken to a fertility clinic under false pretenses, sedated, and implanted with embryos without your knowledge or consent. The clinic has admitted to a mix-up, meaning you're carrying the biological children of. She glanced at her notes, Benson Lee, not the intended recipient Ryan Brown. That's the situation. And your stepmother, Diane Smith, arranged this entire thing to pay off gambling debts she owes to Ryan Brown? Approximately $150,000, based on the emails I found. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Child, the good news is that you have grounds for about 15 different lawsuits. The bad news is that your stepmother and stepbrother are about to realize they've made a very expensive mistake, and desperate people do desperate things. I've noticed. Have you contacted Mr. Lee? Beverly shook her head. I wouldn't even know how to begin that conversation. Hi, sorry to bother you, but a medical error means I'm pregnant with your children, and also my stepmother tried to sell me as a surrogate to pay off her bookie. There's no Hallmark card for that. Patricia actually laughed. No, I suppose there isn't. But you're going to need to tell him. If my research is correct, he's been in Miami for the past 3 months overseeing his company's new port operations. He has resources that could protect you from whatever your stepmother is planning. I don't need a billionaire to protect me. No, Patricia agreed. But those babies you're carrying are legally his. He deserves to know. And frankly, if your stepmother finds out who the real father is, she's going to try to extort him instead of Ryan Brown. Wouldn't you rather control that narrative? Beverly was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. Fine. How do I contact a billionaire? Patricia smiled. Leave that to me. I have a few connections. In the meantime, do not go back to your stepmother's house. Do you have anywhere safe you can stay? My friend Monique has a couch. Good. Use it. And Beverly? Patricia's expression softened. You're handling this remarkably well. Most people would be falling apart. Beverly thought about the last 4 years. About watching her stepmother smile at her father's funeral while already calculating what she'd inherit. About her stepbrother Derek going through her father's office before the body was cold. About all the small cruelties she'd endured because she'd promised her dying father she'd try to keep the family together. Mrs. Williams, I stopped falling apart a long time ago. Now I just get even. The call came 2 days later. Beverly was sitting in Monique's tiny apartment, surrounded by nursing textbooks she couldn't focus on, when her phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, Miss Smith. The voice was female, professional, and crisp. This is Sarah Park, executive assistant to Mr. Benson Lee. Mr. Lee has received communication from your attorney regarding a sensitive matter. He would like to meet with you this afternoon, if you're available. Beverly's heart hammered. This afternoon? Mr. Lee prefers to address urgent matters promptly. A car can be sent to your location at 2 o'clock. It was currently 11:30. Yes. Okay, 2 o'clock. Excellent. The driver will be in a black sedan. Please bring any relevant documentation. The line went dead. Monique, who had been eavesdropping shamelessly from the kitchen, appeared in the doorway with wide eyes. Girl, was that? The billionaire wants to meet me in 2.5 hours. Oh my God. Monique grabbed her arm. Okay, we need to find you something to wear. You cannot meet a billionaire in those sweatpants. What's wrong with my sweatpants? They have a bleach stain on the left thigh and say juicy on the butt. Fair point. What followed was a frantic raid of Monique's closet, which resulted in Beverly borrowing a white linen pantsuit that fit surprisingly well and a pair of strappy sandals that were only slightly too small. You look like a woman who has her life together, Monique declared, circling her with an appraising eye. That's the most generous lie you've ever told me. At exactly 2 o'clock, a black sedan with tinted windows pulled up outside Monique's apartment complex. The driver was an older Korean man with a kind face who introduced himself as Mr. Cho and held the door open for her like she was someone important. The drive took them to Brickell, Miami's financial district, where glass towers competed for skyline dominance. They pulled up to a building that seemed to be made entirely of windows and ambition. Mr. Lee's offices are on the 47th floor, Mr. Cho informed her. Mississippi Park will meet you in the lobby. Beverly took a deep breath, touched her stomach, a habit she'd already developed, and stepped out of the car. The lobby was predictably impressive. Marble floors, abstract art, and a waterfall wall that seemed wildly impractical, but undeniably beautiful. A young Korean woman in a perfectly tailored black dress approached her with a tablet in hand. Miss Smith? I'm Sarah Park. Please follow me. The elevator ride to the 47th floor was silent. Beverly tried not to fidget. She tried not to think about the fact that she was about to meet the biological father of the children growing inside her, a man who probably had lawyers whose lawyers had lawyers. The elevator doors opened directly into what appeared to be a private reception area. More art, more marble. A panoramic view of Biscayne Bay that made Beverly's breath catch. Mr. Lee is finishing a call, Sarah said. He'll be with you in just a moment. Can I offer you water? Tea? Water would be great. Sarah disappeared, and Beverly was left alone in the most expensive room she'd ever stood in. She walked to the window, looking out at the boats dotting the blue water below. Somewhere down there, regular people were having regular problems. Rent. Traffic. What to make for dinner. She was 23 years old, pregnant with twins she hadn't consented to carry, hiding from her criminal stepmother, and about to have a conversation that would probably determine the rest of her life. Normal is overrated anyway, she told herself. Miss Smith. The voice came from behind her, deep, measured, with the faintest accent that spoke of international education and careful control. Beverly turned, and promptly forgot every single word in the English language. Benson Lee was not what she'd expected. The photos online had shown a man in formal suits, usually unsmiling, always surrounded by other business people. They'd captured his sharp jawline and dark eyes, but they hadn't conveyed the presence of him. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that his charcoal gray suit couldn't quite minimize. His black hair was styled back from his face, and his features were striking in a way that felt almost unfair. High cheekbones, full lips, dark eyes that were currently studying her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. He looked like he'd walked off the set of a Korean drama, except Korean dramas hadn't prepared her for the reality of being looked at like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Focus, Beverly. You're not here to admire the man's bone structure. Mr. Lee, she managed, and was proud that her voice didn't waver. He crossed the room toward her, his stride confident but not aggressive. Up close, she could see that his expression wasn't cold, it was careful. The face of a man who'd learned to hide his reactions. Please, he said, gesturing toward a sitting area with leather couches. Sit. She sat. He sat across from her, leaving a respectful distance between them, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Benson Lee did something she didn't expect. He laughed. It was quiet, almost surprised, and he ran a hand over his face in a gesture that was so human it made her blink. I apologize, he said, still with that ghost of disbelief in his voice. I have spent the last 48 hours having lawyers confirm that this situation is, in fact, real, and part of me still cannot believe I'm sitting here. You and me both, Beverly said. If it helps, I've stress-eaten an entire package of Oreos trying to process this. His lips twitched. Was it effective? Not particularly. But they were double stuff, so at least I was committed. Another almost smile. He had a nice smile, she noticed. It softened the sharp edges of his face. Miss Smith. Beverly. If we're going to discuss the accidental children I'm carrying, we should probably be on a first-name basis. Beverly then. He said her name carefully, like he was testing the weight of it. I want to be clear from the beginning. I do not blame you for any of this. The clinic has been remarkably forthcoming. They're terrified of litigation, and I understand that you were a victim of both their negligence and your stepmother's machinations. Machinations, Beverly repeated. That's a fancy word for, she's a garbage person who sold me like a used car. Benson's expression flickered, something that might have been anger, quickly controlled. Yes, that would be the less diplomatic summary. I appreciate you not being diplomatic. I've had enough of polite people pretending my situation isn't completely insane. It is completely insane, he agreed. And I imagine it's been particularly difficult for you. You were violated in multiple ways, you're pregnant with twins, and you're being hunted by people who want to exploit you further. Hunted. The word landed with uncomfortable accuracy. My attorney said you should know, Beverly said. About the pregnancy. That it's your right. But I want to make something clear. I'm not here asking for anything. I'm not trying to trap you or extort you or whatever other gold digger scenario you've probably imagined. I haven't imagined any gold digger scenarios. Really? Because I would have. Rich man, poor pregnant woman, classic setup. You're not poor, he said simply. And I'm not foolish. I've had investigators look into this situation since I was informed, and I know exactly who is responsible for it. I also know that you've been quietly protecting yourself while finishing your nursing degree with a 3.8 GPA, despite losing your father 2 years ago and living with a family that has treated you as more of a servant than a relative. Beverly stared at him. You investigated me. I investigate everyone who enters my life in any significant capacity. In this case, What I found was a young woman who has been remarkably resilient in difficult circumstances. He paused. I also know that Ryan Brown, the man your stepmother intended to have you carry children for, has a criminal record that includes fraud and assault. Had the clinic not made their error, you would be in a far more dangerous situation. The thought made Beverly's stomach turn. She hadn't looked into Ryan Brown, hadn't wanted to know the details of the man she'd almost been tied to forever. So the mix-up was actually... She trailed off. The best possible outcome of a terrible situation? In a way, yes. Benson leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees. Beverly, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Okay, what do you want? Not what you think you should want, or what you think I want to hear. What do you actually want? It was such a simple question, and yet no one had asked her that in years. What did she want? She thought about it. Really thought about it. I want to have these babies safely, she said finally. I want to finish my degree. I want to never see my stepmother or stepbrother again. And I want to make my own choices about my life, choices that are actually mine, not something someone else decided for me. Benson nodded slowly. Those are reasonable wants. They feel pretty basic, actually. The most important things usually are. He was quiet for a moment, and she watched him think, watched him weigh options and outcomes with the kind of rapid calculation that probably made him very good at business. Here is what I propose, he said finally. You're in danger from your stepmother and from Ryan Brown, who I imagine will be unhappy when he discovers his intended surrogate is carrying someone else's children. You need protection, stability, and medical care. I can provide all of those things. What's the catch? No catch. You would have your own suite in my home. It's large enough that we wouldn't need to interact if you didn't want to. You would have access to the best prenatal care available. Your nursing program would be paid for. And your stepmother and stepbrother would be handled through legal channels. Handled? They committed multiple crimes against you. I have lawyers who specialize in making sure people face consequences for their actions. Beverly should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt the old suspicion rising, the one that had kept her alive in her stepmother's house. Why? She asked. Why would you do all that? You don't know me. No, Benson agreed. But you're carrying my children. That makes you, he paused, seeming to search for the right word, my responsibility. I don't want to be anyone's responsibility. Then consider it enlightened self-interest. I want my children to be healthy. I want their mother to be safe and unstressed. These things benefit me as much as they benefit you. It was logical. It was pragmatic. It was exactly the kind of arrangement she should refuse on principle. But principle didn't keep you safe from people like Diane and Derek. What about after? Beverly asked. After the babies are born? We'll figure that out together. Custody, co-parenting, whatever arrangement works for both of us. I'm not interested in taking your children from you, Beverly. I'm interested in making sure all three of you are protected. She wanted to argue. She wanted to maintain her independence, to prove she didn't need anyone's help. But she was 23, pregnant with twins, hiding on her friend's couch, and being hunted by people who saw her as nothing more than a commodity. Sometimes, accepting help wasn't weakness. Sometimes, it was the smart play. Okay, she said. But I have conditions. Something shifted in Benson's expression, respect, maybe, or at least recognition. Name them. First, I'm not some kept woman. I finish my degree, I get a job after, I build my own life. This arrangement is temporary. Agreed. Second, I make my own medical decisions. You can have opinions, but they're my body and my choices. Absolutely. Third, she hesitated. I need to know that you're not going to suddenly change your mind and decide you want to take the babies and throw me out. I need some kind of legal protection. I'll have my lawyers draft an agreement that ensures your parental rights are protected regardless of our personal relationship. You'll have your own attorney review it. Beverly studied him, looking for the lie, the hidden agenda, the catch she knew had to be coming. She didn't find it. Why are you being so reasonable? She asked. In my experience, people with power don't just give it away. Benson was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more personal. My mother died when I was 7, he said. Complications from my younger sister's birth. My father blamed my sister for years, irrationally, cruelly. I watched what it did to her, growing up feeling responsible for something that wasn't her fault. Beverly's throat tightened. I swore I would never be that kind of father. And I swore that if I ever had children, I would protect them and their mother with everything I had. This isn't the situation I imagined. A wry smile crossed his face, but the principle remains the same. Beverly didn't know how to finish the sentence. That's a good reason. I'm glad you think so. He stood, and she realized the meeting was ending. Sarah will help you gather your things from wherever you're staying. The guest suite will be ready by this evening. And Beverly? She looked up at him. I know trust has to be earned. I don't expect you to believe in my good intentions immediately. But I hope, over time, I can prove that this is exactly what it appears to be. She wanted to say something clever. Something that would keep a barrier between them, maintain her emotional distance. Instead, she said, thank you. And meant it. Benson Lee's home was not a house. It was a compound. Beverly stared out the car window as they drove through the gates, trying to process the sheer scope of what she was seeing. The main house was a modern architectural marvel, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, set on what appeared to be several acres of waterfront property. There were gardens, a pool, a separate building that might have been a guest house, and a dock with not one but two boats. This is a lot, she said. Mr. Cho, who was driving, chuckled. Mr. Lee values his privacy. And his view. The view was admittedly spectacular. The Skane Bay stretched out behind the property, all blue water and golden light as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. They pulled up to the main entrance, where a woman was waiting, middle-aged, with a warm smile and practical clothing that suggested she actually did things around here. Miss Beverly, she said as Beverly stepped out of the car. I'm Rosa. I manage the household. If you need anything at all, you come to me. Thank you. And it's just Beverly. Rosa's smile widened. Just Beverly, then. Come, let me show you to your suite. The word suite was an understatement. Her rooms, plural, occupied the entire east wing of the second floor. There was a bedroom with a bed large enough to get lost in, a sitting room with a view of the bay, a bathroom with a soaking tub and a rainfall shower, and a small private study already stocked with nursing textbooks. Mr. Lee asked what you were studying and had these delivered, Rosa explained. If you need anything else for your studies, just let us know. Beverly ran her fingers over the spines of the textbooks. They were all current editions, some of them still shrink-wrapped. She'd been using older versions from the library because she couldn't afford the new ones. He did this today? Since the meeting, Mr. Lee is efficient. That was one word for it. Dinner is at 7, Rosa continued. Mr. Lee would like you to join him, but only if you're comfortable. If you prefer to eat in your suite, that can be arranged. Beverly thought about hiding in her room, avoiding any interaction. It would be easy. Safe. But she was tired of playing it safe. I'll come to dinner, she said. Rosa nodded approvingly. Good. You'll find the dining room on the first floor, west wing. Just follow the hallway from the main staircase. After Rosa left, Beverly explored her new living space more thoroughly. The closet was empty except for a single garment bag with a note attached, for dinner. If you don't like it, please choose whatever you prefer. BL. Inside the bag was a simple but elegant dress in a soft peach color with a flowing skirt and a modest neckline. It was beautiful, and when Beverly checked the tag, she nearly choked. She didn't know clothes could cost that much. But she also didn't have anything else appropriate for dinner with a billionaire, so she supposed she was wearing the terrifyingly expensive peach dress. At exactly 7 o'clock, she descended the main staircase, feeling like a character in a movie. The house was even more impressive from the inside, art on every wall, fresh flowers in crystal vases, and that sense of quiet luxury that came from every detail being perfect. She found the dining room without too much trouble. It was a more intimate space than she'd expected, a table that could seat 8, currently set for 2, with candles providing soft light and the bay visible through the windows. Benson was already there, standing by the window with a glass of wine. He'd changed from his business attire into something more casual, dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that Beverly absolutely did not notice. Focus. You're pregnant with his twins. You can admire his forearms later. No, wait, don't admire them at all. What is wrong with you? You found it, he said, turning as she entered. His eyes swept over her briefly. The dress looks good. It costs more than my car. Your car is a 2006 Honda Civic with questionable brakes and a tendency to overheat. Beverly stared at him. You know what kind of car I drive? My investigators are thorough. He pulled out a chair for her. Also, you should stop driving that car. It's a safety hazard. I'll have Mr. Cho arrange something more reliable. I can't just accept a car from you. You're carrying my children. If you crash that Honda into a palm tree because the brakes gave out, all three of you could be hurt. This isn't about generosity. It's about basic risk management. She wanted to argue, but the truth was, her brakes were questionable. She'd been meaning to get them looked at for months. Fine, she said, sitting down. But I'm choosing the color. Fair enough. Dinner was served by staff she hadn't seen before, discreet, efficient, appearing and disappearing like well-trained ghosts. The food was excellent. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, rice that was somehow more flavorful than any rice she'd ever had. This is amazing, she said after the first few bites. Your chef is talented. I'll let Minji know. She takes pride in her work. Benson took a sip of wine. How are you feeling? With the pregnancy? Fine so far. Some nausea in the mornings, but nothing unmanageable. I've arranged for you to see Dr. Kim tomorrow. She's one of the best OB-GYNs in Miami. She'll do a full assessment and make sure everything is progressing normally. You've been busy. I told you, I'm efficient. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Beverly found herself relaxing despite herself. There was something about Benson's presence that was oddly calming. He didn't seem to need to fill every silence with words, didn't seem to expect her to perform or entertain him. Can I ask you something? She said eventually. Of course. Why did you have sperm at a fertility clinic in the first place? You're not exactly struggling to find willing partners. She gestured vaguely at his face, his body, the general situation. I'm assuming women throw themselves at you regularly. Benson's expression shifted, a flicker of something that might have been pain, quickly masked. I was engaged, he said. 2 years ago. To a woman named Debbie Kang. We had been together for 3 years, and she was eager to have children. She suggested we use a fertility clinic to ensure the best possible outcome. She had some concerns about conceiving naturally. That seems reasonable. It would have been if she'd actually wanted children. His voice was flat, controlled. What she wanted was leverage. When our relationship began to deteriorate, she made it clear that she intended to use any pregnancy or potential pregnancy to secure her position in my life and my fortune. Wow, that's calculated. Yes, I discovered her plans before we could proceed with any implantation. I ended the engagement. But I never retrieved my deposit from the clinic. It didn't seem like a priority. He shook his head. An oversight that has apparently led us here. Life is weird like that. It really is. Beverly considered his story. The pieces were starting to fit together, his wariness, his emphasis on legal protections, his clinical approach to their situation. He'd been burned before. He was trying to make sure it didn't happen again. I'm sorry, she said. About Debbie. That must have been painful. It was enlightening. He met her eyes. I learned that not everyone who says they care about you actually does. Some people only care about what you can provide them. I know that lesson, Beverly said quietly. My stepmother taught it to me very thoroughly. Something passed between them, recognition, maybe. The shared understanding of people who'd been used by those who should have protected them. Then we understand each other, Benson said. I think we might. The next few weeks settled into a routine that Beverly hadn't expected. Mornings, she had breakfast in her suite while reviewing class notes. Most of her courses had online components, and her professors had been remarkably accommodating when she'd explained she needed to attend remotely for personal reasons. Mid-mornings, she had appointments with Dr. Kim, who was as excellent as advertised and who confirmed that Beverly was carrying healthy twins, a boy and a girl. The news hit Beverly harder than she'd expected. Abstract babies became real children with real genders and real futures. Afternoons, she studied. Sometimes in her suite, sometimes in the library, because of course Benson had a library, and sometimes by the pool when the weather was nice. Evenings, she had dinner with Benson. That last part surprised her most of all. She'd expected him to be absent, too busy running his empire to bother with meals. Instead, he was there almost every night, asking about her studies, sharing stories from his day, listening to her complain about the unreasonable expectations of her clinical nursing instructor. He was good company. Funnier than she'd expected, with a dry wit that emerged when he was relaxed. He genuinely seemed interested in her life, her goals, her opinions on everything from hospital administration to which streaming shows were worth watching. "You've seen every episode of Golden Girls?" she asked one evening, incredulous. "My grandmother was a fan. We watched together when I was young." He smiled at the memory. Sophia was her favorite. Sophia is everyone's favorite. She had no filter. "My grandmother was the same. She once told a business rival of my father's that his suit made him look like a constipated peacock. In public. At a charity gala." Beverly burst out laughing. "I think I would have loved your grandmother." "She would have loved you." Benson's voice was soft. She always appreciated women who spoke their minds. The weeks became a month. Beverly's belly began to show, a small curve that made everything feel more real. She found clothes in her closet that fit her changing body, comfortable, stylish, clearly selected by someone who understood what pregnant women needed. She stopped asking where things came from. Benson provided. She accepted. It was easier than fighting every small kindness. But easy, as Beverly had learned, never lasted. The first crack appeared on a Thursday afternoon. Beverly was in the garden, enjoying the sunshine and reading a novel that had nothing to do with nursing, when Rosa appeared with a troubled expression. "Miss Beverly? There's a woman at the gate. She says she's Mr. Lee's fiancée." Beverly's stomach dropped. "His what?" "She's quite insistent. Security has detained her, but she's making quite a scene." Beverly set down her book and walked toward the front of the house, curiosity warring with something she refused to identify as jealousy. She wasn't jealous. She had no reason to be jealous. Benson was nothing to her but the biological father of her children. Keep telling yourself that. Through the window, she could see the gate, and the woman standing beyond it, gesturing dramatically at a security guard who looked deeply uncomfortable. The woman was beautiful. Of course she was. Tall, slim, with perfect hair and perfect makeup and a designer outfit. She had the look of someone who had never been told no in her life. Debbie King, Beverly assumed. The calculating ex-fiancé. She looked even worse in person than Beverly had imagined. "Should I call Mr. Lee?" Rosa asked. Before Beverly could answer, a familiar black sedan pulled up the driveway. Benson stepped out, took one look at the scene at the gate, and his expression went cold in a way Beverly hadn't seen before. Ice Emperor, she thought. Now I understand the nickname. She watched through the window as he approached Debbie, keeping a careful distance. Debbie immediately softened, reaching for him, but he stepped back. They exchanged words, too far away for Beverly to hear, and Debbie's expression shifted from pleading to angry to something that looked like desperation. Then she looked past Benson, toward the house. Her eyes locked with Beverly's through the window. Even from this distance, Beverly could see the hatred in them. That evening, dinner was tense. Benson had said nothing about the incident, but Beverly could see the strain in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "You can talk about it," she said finally. "Whatever happened at the gate?" He set down his fork. "Debbie found out about you. About the pregnancy." "How?" "I'm not sure yet. I have people looking into it." He rubbed a hand over his face. She appeared to make her position clear. "Which is?" "That she believes we're still connected. That the children you're carrying are, somehow, her opportunity to insert herself back into my life." His jaw tightened. "She suggested that you're running a scheme, that you deliberately arranged the clinic switch to trap me." Beverly felt the anger rise, hot and sharp. "And you believe her?" "Of course not." His response was immediate, almost offended. "I know exactly who arranged the situation, and it wasn't you." Debbie is grasping at straws, trying to create doubt where there is none. "But she's going to try." "Yes, she's going to try." He met her eyes. "I want you to be prepared. Debbie is resourceful. And she doesn't take rejection well. She may attempt to contact you, to undermine you, to make you feel unwelcome here." "She can try," Beverly said, her voice steady. "But I've dealt with worse than a jealous ex-girlfriend. My stepmother has been trying to destroy me for years. Debbie Kang is going to have to work harder than showing up at a gate and making a scene." Something flickered in Benson's eyes, surprise, maybe, or admiration. You're not scared of her. I'm not scared of much anymore. Being scared didn't get me anywhere. Being smart did. Wise philosophy. I learned it the hard way. They finished dinner in a more comfortable silence after that. But Beverly couldn't shake the image of Debbie's eyes, the pure, focused hatred in them. She had a feeling things were about to get a lot more complicated. Diane Smith was having a very bad month. First, her stepdaughter had disappeared. Just vanished, like the ungrateful little wretch she was. One day Beverly was at that apartment she shared with her trashy friend. The next day she was gone, phone disconnected, social media silent, no forwarding address. Second, Ryan Brown was getting impatient. The $50,000 he'd given her was long spent, and he wanted either his surrogate or his money back. Diane had been avoiding his calls, but she couldn't avoid them forever. Third, and this was the part that really burned, somehow Beverly had ended up in an even better situation than Diane had planned. The hospital had screwed up, and instead of carrying Ryan's baby, Beverly was carrying the children of some Korean billionaire. A billionaire. Diane had learned this from Derek, who had been digging through Beverly's digital footprint with the obsessive dedication of a man who knew his gambling debts were tied to his mother's success. She's living in his house, Mom, Derek reported, showing her photos he'd found online. Look at this place. It's a mansion. And I found an article about her at some fancy doctor's office. Someone got a picture of her with him. Diane studied the photo. Beverly, in clothes nicer than anything Diane owned, walking beside a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Her stepdaughter was glowing, that pregnancy glow that Diane remembered from her own youth, before life had beaten it out of her. That should be my money, Diane muttered. That should be my lifestyle. We could still make it happen, Derek said. She's still family. We have leverage. What leverage? She hates us. But the billionaire doesn't know that. Derek smiled, that calculating smile he'd inherited from his father. What if we show up as the concerned, loving family? What if we convince him that Beverly is unstable, that she needs supervision, that we only want to help? Diane considered this. It had possibilities. And if that doesn't work, then we find another angle. Rich men have secrets, Mom. Everyone has secrets. We just need to find his. It wasn't a terrible plan. Diane reached for her phone. I know someone who might help. A woman who contacted me last week, asking questions about Beverly. Who? Diane smiled. Someone who wants Beverly gone as much as we do. Her name is Debbie Kong. The meeting happened 3 days later, at an upscale restaurant in downtown Miami. Debbie chose the venue, a statement of dominance that Diane recognized and resented, but couldn't afford to challenge. Debbie was exactly what Diane had expected, beautiful, rich, and deeply angry beneath her polished surface. The kind of woman who had everything and still wanted more. Thank you for meeting with me, Debbie said, not sounding thankful at all. I understand we share a common problem. Beverly, Diane agreed. My stepdaughter. Such a sweet girl, but so confused. Confused? She has a history of instability. Her father's death affected her deeply. We've been so worried about her making good decisions. Debbie's smile was cold. How convenient. A concerned family. Benson would be very interested to know that Beverly might be unsuitable to carry his children. We only want what's best for her, Derek chimed in. And for the babies, of course. Of course. Debbie toyed with her wine glass. Here's what I propose. You help me convince Benson that Beverly is unfit, mentally, emotionally, whatever story we need to create. Once she's removed from his protection, you can handle her however you wish. I don't care. I just want her away from Benson and those children. And what do we get out of this arrangement? Money, obviously. Debbie named a figure that made both Diane and Derek's eyes widen. Half now, half when Beverly is no longer in the picture. Diane pretended to consider it. The truth was, she would have done it for free. She'd hated Beverly since the day she'd married Beverly's father, hated her for being loved, for being wanted, for being the constant reminder that Diane was second choice. We have a deal, Diane said. They shook hands. Neither of them noticed the server who'd been paying very close attention to their conversation. The server who slipped into the back room after they left and made a phone call. Mr. Lee? It's Miguel. You asked me to keep an eye out for anything unusual at the restaurant. I think you need to hear this. Benson received the call during a meeting and promptly excused himself. 20 minutes later, he had a recording of the entire conversation between Debbie, Diane, and Derek. His security team had been monitoring Debbie since her appearance at the gate, and they'd flagged her meeting with two unknown individuals. The recording made his blood run cold. Once she's removed from his protection, you can handle her however you wish. Handle her. Like Beverly was a problem to be disposed of, not a person carrying his children. He thought about the woman who'd sat across from him at dinner every night for the past month. Who made him laugh with her commentary on bad reality shows. Who was smarter than half his executives and twice as stubborn. Who touched her stomach sometimes without realizing it, already loving children she'd never asked for. These people wanted to hurt her. And Benson Lee did not allow anyone to hurt what was his. He made 3 phone calls. The first was to his legal team, instructing them to begin building cases against Diane and Derek Smith for kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. The second was to his security team, ordering increased protection for Beverly and surveillance of all 3 conspirators. The third was to Beverly. "We need to talk," he said when she answered. "Something's happened." Beverly took the news better than Benson expected. "So my stepmother and stepbrother are working with your crazy ex to destroy my life," she summarized. "That tracks. You're not upset?" "Oh, I'm furious. But I'm also not surprised." She was sitting in the library, where he'd found her studying, and her expression was more resigned than afraid. "Diane has been trying to destroy me since my dad died. Derek's just along for the ride because he doesn't know how to function without her. They're planning something." The recording was vague, but they mentioned creating a story to convince me you're unfit. "What kind of story?" "I don't know yet, but we need to be prepared." He sat down across from her. "Whatever they try, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Beverly was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You know what I like about you, Benson?" "What?" "You keep asking for my trust instead of demanding it. My stepmother always demanded. My stepbrother always assumed. But you ask. Trust can't be demanded or assumed. It has to be given freely. That's..." She shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "That's a very good answer. I have my moments." She stood, and for a moment, they were closer than usual, close enough for him to smell the coconut scent of her shampoo, to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "I trust you," she said. "I don't know when that happened, but I do." "Then trust me to handle this. Debbie, your stepmother, your stepbrother, they're going to wish they'd never crossed us." Us. He realized what he'd said. Us. Like they were a team. Like they were together in this beyond the simple biology of shared children. Us, he confirmed. And something in the air between them shifted. The attack came 2 weeks later. Beverly was at her clinical rotation, one of the few times she left the estate, always with security discreetly following, when she was approached by a reporter. "Miss Smith? Beverly Smith? I'm with Miami Herald Lifestyle. I was hoping to ask you some questions about your relationship with Benson Lee." No comment. She kept walking toward her car, where Mr. Cho was waiting. "Is it true you're pregnant with his children? That you deliberately targeted him as part of an extortion scheme?" Beverly froze. Turned. "Excuse me." The reporter, a young woman with hungry eyes and a recorder thrust forward, smiled. "We've received information that you have a history of mental instability and that you orchestrated the fertility clinic switch to trap Mr. Lee. Would you like to respond to these allegations?" "Those are lies." "Who told you that?" "I'm not at liberty to reveal my sources. But I have statements from family members concerned about your well-being. My family members sold me to a criminal and tried to force me to be a surrogate without my consent." Beverly's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Whatever statements they gave you are lies designed to manipulate a situation they created." The reporter looked surprised. This wasn't the reaction she'd expected. "Are you saying you were forced into surrogacy?" "I'm saying that my stepmother and stepbrother drugged me, took me to a fertility clinic, and had me implanted with embryos without my knowledge or consent. The only reason I'm not carrying a criminal's babies right now is because the clinic made an error. So before you print whatever garbage they fed you, maybe do some actual journalism and verify your sources." She got into the car and slammed the door. Mr. Cho pulled away smoothly, and Beverly sat in the back seat, shaking with anger. Her phone buzzed. "Benson. I heard. Are you okay?" "I'm angry." But I think I handled it. You did more than handle it. You gave them a counter-narrative. Well done. Will the story still run? I'm having my lawyers contact the Herald now. With the recording and the evidence we've gathered, I doubt they'll want to publish anything Debbie provided. Beverly leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. How much longer? She typed. Until this is over? The response came quickly, soon. I promise. Come home. I'll explain everything. Home. He'd called it home. And somehow, despite everything, that's what it had become. That evening, Benson laid out his plan. We have enough evidence to have Diane and Derek arrested, he said. They were in his study, a room she'd never been in before, all dark wood and leather, very masculine and very Benson. Kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy. My lawyers are coordinating with the prosecutor. It should happen within the week. And Debbie? Debbie is trickier. She hasn't done anything technically illegal yet, but her credibility is destroyed. She's been feeding information to the press, but after your statement today and the evidence we've provided, no reputable outlet will touch her stories. She won't stop. No, Benson agreed. She won't. But she'll become increasingly desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. You're waiting for her to make a mistake. I'm waiting for her to overreach. And I believe she will, especially once she realizes her allies are being arrested. Beverly considered this. There's something else, isn't there? Something you're not telling me. Benson was quiet for a moment. Then he said, my grandfather is coming. Your grandfather? Lee Sung-ho, the founder of Lee Global. He's eager to meet you. Because I'm carrying his great-grandchildren. Yes, but also because. Benson hesitated. He's been asking about you. He saw a photo from the charity gala last week, the one where we announced the pregnancy, and he became very interested. Interested how? He approves of you. Beverly blinked. He doesn't know me. He knows enough. He knows you stood up to that reporter. He knows you've been studying while pregnant, maintaining your grades. He knows you make me laugh. Benson met her eyes. He told me I should marry you. The words hung in the air between them. Marry me, Beverly repeated. I told him it was too soon. That we barely know each other. That you deserve time to make your own choices without pressure. That's very considerate of you. I try. He paused. But he is coming. And he will probably say something embarrassing. I wanted you to be prepared. Beverly didn't know what to say. A proposal, even an indirect one, was the last thing she'd expected from this conversation. Benson. You don't have to respond to anything, he said quickly. I meant what I said. You deserve to make your own choices. I just didn't want you to be blindsided. She studied him, this man who'd taken her in, protected her, given her space to become herself again. This man who asked instead of demanded, who respected her boundaries even when he clearly wanted more. This man who she'd been falling for so gradually that she hadn't noticed until this exact moment. I'm not saying yes, she said slowly. I'm not saying no either. I'm saying, ask me again after all of this is over. When there's no crisis, no conspiracy, no crazy ex-girlfriend trying to destroy us. Ask me then, and we'll see where we are. Benson's expression softened. That's fair. One more thing. Yes. If your grandfather says something embarrassing, I'm going to remember it and use it to tease you for years. He laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. I wouldn't expect anything less. Diane and Derek were arrested on a Wednesday morning. Beverly watched the news coverage from the living room, Benson beside her, as her stepmother was walked out of her house in handcuffs. Diane's face was a mask of fury and disbelief. She clearly hadn't expected consequences for her actions. She looks so angry, Beverly said. She expected to win, Benson replied. People like her always do. Will she go to prison? Almost certainly. The charges are serious, and the evidence is overwhelming. Derek will likely receive a lesser sentence if he cooperates. He'll cooperate. He has no spine without her. On the screen, Diane was shouting something at the cameras, probably blaming Beverly for everything, as she always did. The sound was muted, but the rage was visible. Do you feel anything? Benson asked. Watching this. Beverly thought about it. Relief, she said finally. And maybe sadness? Not for them. For the relationship we could have had if they'd been different people. My dad would have wanted us to be a real family. He tried so hard to make it work. Your father sounds like he was a good man. He was the best man. He just had terrible taste in women. She smiled slightly. Present company excluded, I hope. I'm not a woman. You know what I meant. Benson's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression shifted. Debbie's on the move, he said. My security team says she's heading toward the estate. She's coming here? It appears so. She probably just saw the news about Diane's arrest. She's losing allies. Beverly stood. Good. Let her come. I have a few things to say to her. Beverly. I've been hiding from these people for months. I'm done hiding. If she wants a confrontation, she'll get one. Benson looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, but I'm staying with you. I wouldn't have it any other way. Debbie arrived 20 minutes later, blowing through the front gate after convincing a new security guard that she had an appointment. Beverly was waiting for her in the front hall, Benson standing slightly behind her. She'd changed into a bright orange dress, one of her favorites, because Debbie was the type of woman who probably thought orange was unflattering, and she'd done her hair carefully, her long dark waves falling perfectly around her shoulders. If she was going to have a confrontation, she was going to look good doing it. Debbie stormed through the front door, all fury and designer heels. You! She pointed at Beverly. You've ruined everything. Diane and Derek are arrested because of you. They're arrested because they committed crimes, Beverly said calmly. I'm just the victim. You're not a victim. You're a schemer. A gold digger. You saw an opportunity and you took it. I was drugged and impregnated without my consent. If that's an opportunity, I'd hate to see what you consider a problem. Debbie's face contorted. Benson, she said, turning to him. You can't believe anything she says. She's manipulating you. Just like she manipulated the clinic, the press, everyone. I believe her, Benson said. His voice was cold. I believe her because I have evidence. I believe her because I've watched her for months and seen nothing but honesty and courage. And I believe her because I know you, Debbie. I know what you're capable of. You don't know anything. We were going to be married. We were never going to be married. I ended our engagement because you tried to use children that didn't exist to control me. And now you're trying to destroy a woman who's done nothing wrong because you can't accept that I've moved on. Moved on. Debbie laughed, a harsh sound. With her? She's a nobody. A nursing student from nowhere. She's not even pretty enough. Stop. Beverly's voice cut through Debbie's tirade. She stepped forward, close enough to see the mascara smudging under Debbie's eyes, close enough to see the fear beneath the rage. I want you to listen very carefully, Beverly said. Because I'm only going to say this once. You don't scare me. You're not the first person who tried to destroy my life, and you won't be the last. But I'm still standing. I'm still here. And I'm not going anywhere. Debbie sneered. You think you've won? You think because Diane's arrested, you're safe? I have resources. You have a failed scheme and diminishing options. The press won't touch your stories anymore. Your allies are in jail. And Beverly glanced back at him, then returned her gaze to Debbie. Benson has made his choice. It's not you. It was never going to be you. Something cracked in Debbie's expression. The fury slipped, and beneath it was something raw and desperate. I loved him, she whispered. I loved him first. No, Beverly said, not unkindly. You wanted him. There's a difference. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Debbie's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of her, leaving behind something smaller, sadder. What happens now? She asked. Benson stepped forward. Now you leave. You don't contact Beverly again. You don't contact me. You move on with your life, and you leave us to live ours. And if I don't? Then my lawyers will pursue every legal avenue available to them. The recording we have of you planning with Diane and Derek is enough to establish conspiracy. You could face charges. Debbie paled. You're bluffing. I never bluff. They stared at each other, former lovers, now strangers. Then Debbie turned and walked toward the door. She paused at the threshold and looked back at Beverly. He'll get tired of you, she said. He always does. Maybe, Beverly replied. But that'll be for us to figure out. Not you. Debbie left without another word. The door closed behind her. Beverly let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That was... Benson started. Exhausting? Satisfying? Mildly anticlimactic? I was going to say impressive. He moved closer to her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. You handled that perfectly. I've had practice dealing with terrible women. Thank my stepmother. I'd rather not thank her for anything. Beverly laughed, and some of the tension she'd been carrying melted away. It's over, she said, the realization hitting her. It's actually over. The threats are handled, Benson agreed. Now comes the part where we get to actually live our lives. What does that look like? He took her hand, the first time he'd touched her so deliberately, so gently. I was hoping we could figure that out together. Beverly looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd protected her without smothering her, who'd respected her boundaries even when he clearly wanted more. Together sounds good, she said. And for the first time in years, she meant it. 3 months later, Beverly Smith gave birth to twins. The delivery was complicated, twins usually were, but Dr. Kim was excellent, and Benson was there the entire time, holding her hand, telling her she was doing amazing, looking like he might pass out at several key moments. You're supposed to be the calm one, Beverly panted between contractions. I'm calm. You're sweating through your shirt. That's a calm sweat. There's no such thing as a calm sweat, Benson. But despite the jokes, she was grateful for his presence. Grateful for the way he looked at her, not with possession, but with awe. Like she was doing something miraculous. Which, she supposed, she was. The boy came first, small, perfect, screaming with impressive volume. They named him Smith, after Beverly's father. The girl came 3 minutes later, smaller still, but fierce, with a grip that surprised the nurses. They named her Suman after Benson's mother. Smith and Suman. 2 perfect babies who hadn't asked to be part of any of this drama, but who were, undeniably, here. They're beautiful, Benson whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. He looked terrified and ecstatic and completely overwhelmed. They look like old potatoes, Beverly said. They're beautiful old potatoes. That's the spirit. Later, when Beverly was resting and the twins were sleeping in their bassinets, Benson's grandfather arrived. Lee Sung-ho was not what Beverly had expected. She'd imagined someone stern and formal, but the man who walked into her hospital room was small, white-haired, and had the mischievous smile of someone who'd lived 90 years and was determined to enjoy every remaining moment. Ah, he said, looking at Beverly with obvious approval. The woman who tamed my grandson. Excellent work. I haven't tamed anyone, Beverly protested. He was already domesticated when I met him. Sung-ho laughed a warm, delighted sound. I like her, he told Benson. She's funny. Keep her. I'm planning to. Have you asked her yet? Grandfather. What? Sung-ho looked innocent. I'm an old man. I could die at any moment. I'd like to see my grandson properly settled before I go. You've been about to die at any moment for 20 years, Benson said dryly. All the more reason not to waste time. Beverly watched the exchange with amusement. There was clearly deep love between them, even if it was expressed through bickering. He's right, you know, she said. Both men turned to look at her. About what? Benson asked. About not wasting time. She reached for his hand. We've been dancing around this for months. We've faced down my psychotic stepmother, your obsessive ex-girlfriend, and a conspiracy that sounds like a bad soap opera. I think we've earned the right to be straightforward. Benson's expression shifted, hope and uncertainty and something deeper. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you want to ask me something, you should ask me. And maybe I'll say yes. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, slowly, he got down on one knee beside her hospital bed. Sung-ho made a delighted sound and pulled out his phone. I'm recording this. Grandfather, please. Continue. Pretend I'm not here. Benson sighed, but he was smiling. Beverly Smith. When I first met you, I thought you were the most unexpected thing that had ever happened to me. A stranger carrying my children, walking into my life with more courage than most people find in a lifetime. You're going to make me cry, Beverly said. I'm hormonal and exhausted. This isn't fair. Let me finish. He squeezed her hand. These months with you have been the happiest of my life. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You make me want to be better. A better father, a better man, a better partner. I know we haven't done this in the traditional order. I know we started with babies and are working backward. But I don't care about order. I care about you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Will you marry me? Not because of the twins, or because it's convenient, or because my grandfather won't stop pestering me about it, but because I love you and I can't imagine spending the rest of my life with anyone else. Beverly looked at him, this ridiculous, wonderful man who'd come into her life through a medical error and stayed through choice. Yes, she said. Obviously, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, a simple band with a single diamond, elegant and understated, and then he kissed her. Finally, Sung-ho said, still recording. I can die happy now. You're not dying, Beverly and Benson said simultaneously. We'll see. The excitement might be too much for my heart. Your heart is fine. You had a checkup last month. Details. In the bassinet, Sumin began to cry, which set off Smith, and suddenly the room was filled with newborn screaming. Welcome to parenthood, Beverly said, reaching for her daughter. Benson picked up his son, looking slightly panicked. How do I support his head? There you go. You're doing fine. They stood there together, each holding a baby, wearing matching expressions of exhausted joy. We're really doing this, Benson said. Marriage, twins, the whole thing. We're really doing this. It's going to be chaos. Probably. We have no idea what we're doing. Absolutely none. I love you. I love you too. Beverly smiled at him over their crying children. Now, let's figure out how to make them stop screaming, because I really need some sleep. 1 year later. The wedding was small, just family and close friends, held in the garden of the estate that had become Beverly's home. She wore a flowing pink dress that made her feel like a princess, and Benson wore a traditional Korean hanbok in deep blue that made him look even more handsome than usual, if that was possible. Monique was her maid of honor, crying happy tears throughout the ceremony. Sung-ho gave a toast that was equal parts embarrassing stories about Benson as a child and heartfelt declarations of love for his new granddaughter-in-law. The twins, now 1 year old and impossibly cute, were dressed in matching yellow outfits and spent most of the ceremony trying to eat flowers. They get that from you, Beverly told Benson. I have never eaten flowers in my life. You ate a decorative plant at that charity gala last month. I thought it was garnish. It was a succulent. It looked edible. They danced their first dance as husband and wife, while the twins clapped from their grandmother's arms, Benson's sister, who had flown in from Seoul for the occasion and who had immediately adopted Beverly as a long-lost friend. I'm so glad he found you, she told Beverly during the reception. He's been different since you came into his life. Happier. More human. He was always human, Beverly said. He just needed someone to remind him. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the twins were sleeping and they had the whole house to themselves, Beverly and Benson stood on the balcony, looking out at the bay. A year ago, I was hiding on my friend's couch, terrified of what my stepmother would do next, Beverly said. Now I'm married to a billionaire, mother of twins, and about to finish my nursing degree. Life takes unexpected turns. That's an understatement. Benson put his arm around her, pulling her close. Any regrets? Beverly thought about everything she'd been through. The fear, the uncertainty, the moments when she'd wondered if she was strong enough to survive. Then she thought about everything she gained. A partner who respected her. Children she loved more than she'd thought possible. A future she could actually look forward to. Not a single one, she said. He kissed her forehead. Good. Because I'm planning to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have any. That's a big promise. I told you, I never bluff. She laughed, leaning into him, and they stayed there together as the moon rose over the water, two people who'd found each other through the strangest circumstances imaginable and discovered that sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the greatest blessings. And that beautiful people is the story of Beverly and Benson, proof that sometimes the universe has a plan, even when it looks like chaos. If you loved this journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Share this video with a friend who loves drama, love, and happy endings. And if you want more stories like this, check out our other videos. The link is right there on the screen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. And until next time, stay blessed, stay beautiful, and keep believing in love.